When Mark was a child, he was always overactive, hyper, really, that's what he was. He was in one place 1 second and he was gone the next, and that's the way it was all the time.
Really, I was just 1 year older than him, so it was part of my life. I probably knew no different when I was young.
Of course, he was brought for tests, and I remember he was pretty young at the time. I suppose he was maybe 4, and the people who brought him to just said straight, well, get this straight. I just want to tell you straight, he'll never be able to read or write. And that was the first thing. And like, he was young enough. Yeah, right, okay. He was young enough at the time.
When I was younger, up until I suppose I was 12 or 13, it was just part of, it just felt like part of your life. As you got older then and you started, it probably was more, more stressful. He was tall, he was probably slightly taller than me, and he was strong. He was well able to do damage if he took the notion. I possibly had an easier time than some of the younger siblings because he tended to regard them as babies. He was big, they were small. That was. Mark always, he seemed to get himself into trouble so many times. Lucky escapes. He had numerous incidents. The very first incident I can remember is where he pulled a boiling kettle on top of himself. And that was an awful, he got a major scarring on his arm. I think he still has it. He fell out a window one time. He fell off the tractor and the wheel drove over him. These were all very, very scary.
It was extremely difficult to keep an eye on, with other younger children especially, but on one occasion during the summertime, my husband was going to do something with hay, and he said he'd take him down to the field and he'd be all right there, he can run around. He put him beside him on the tractor, really close to him, but he just jumped, and he had to make a decision to go over him rather than put on the brakes. He was going downhill. So he went over him, and he was okay, actually. His chest was bruised, that's all. No damage done at all to him, thank God. Like, it was a miracle nearly. So he just was gone. Like, he'd be in the house, and if you turned to do something, he was just gone. So that's the way he was. He used to visit St. Peter's. He used to go for a day, go up for a day and come home at night, that sort of thing. But eventually they decided that they would take him in permanently, and he could come home whenever I wished to take him home.
Well, when Mark went into residential care, it most certainly left life much easier for the family. There were 6 of us apart from Mark, and Mark was full on. It was, it demanded so much. He demanded on his own so much time at the time, and everything had to circle. Everything else really came secondary. So it was a big lift for the family, and I'm sure certainly a huge mental lift for my parents, because the stress would have been a lot at the time, because it took life over. I mean, family could never go off any place together. For a start, you couldn't. Always, half the family had to stay at home and the other half would do little things like that, that you see everybody else doing that you couldn't do. I suppose that's looking at it from a child's eyes at the time, but that's the way it was.
He has been there since, coming home for a few days at a time or whenever. Yeah, like, he did. He got on well with all the family. He was happy, delighted to be home, and happy enough to go back as well. Quite happy to go back. Eventually he decided he was going home when he was going back, Yeah, I was happy that he was very happy there, and there was no problems as far as I knew.
He was in St. Peter's and coming home for weekends. What I remember was severe epileptic fits.
He did sometimes get a seizure when he was at home, which was, I suppose, well, they told me that they were putting him on special, or I suppose, Valium, I think, before he come home, so that he mightn't get a seizure.
He always had epilepsy, and we had got used to it at home and we dealt with it, but sometimes when he came home at weekends, some of these fits got very, very severe. I mean, one time he went straight through the front door. And that frightened us a lot because they seemed to be getting worse at that time.
They thought in St. Peter's that he would benefit from being in Beaumont, which was a special place for autistic people. But he wasn't there too long till they discovered that it wasn't going to do him any good. So he was back in St. Peter's then. When I was first told that he was moving out to a house, I just wondered how it would work, because I thought, you know, he was well settled there and he considered it his home and he was happy there. And it worked for a little while, the first house he went to, but he thought it was only a holiday, I think, and he wanted to go back, and I think he just tried to get back on his own once, so they had to bring him back.
There was an attempt to rehouse him in a house with a few others, a few miles from Castle Pollard. That didn't work out. That may have had a bearing on the way he behaved for the last year or two in residential care. And then he was moved out to another house, which was, I'm not sure how it was a house with maybe about 6 others. That didn't work out at all. There were locked doors and people just felt he was somebody that had to be controlled rather than encouraged. So it didn't, he just fought against that, and I think he was violent to somebody, but as a reaction. So he did get violent at times.
In one particular house he was in, the doors, like every door was locked. You know, no matter which room he was in, it was locked. And I think that was a very, very big problem for him.
My family's, my children's and my nieces and nephews' view of Mark is certainly they regarded him with a certain amount of fear up to this previously, especially as I mentioned before about the few semi-violent incidents, and definitely would have been afraid, but now they are much more relaxed and much more comfortable. And then finally his current move, which we were all very, you know, we were all quite sceptical of, because we thought it was just going to be a repeat. So, but it is actually, even within a couple of months, you could see things were getting better for him, and
he's made such strides in the last couple of years that it's, I hope he will improve further. He has improved an awful lot. His medication has been really well cut back, and that has made a huge difference to him. He's more alert and aware of what's going on, and he speaks better. So, and he's happier. He's way happier because he's always doing something. You know, he's always, the lads are always doing something with him, and he's there helping them all the time.
He's in a different place now mentally, that's for sure, and physically he is too. He looks much better, and seems to enjoy life. He's obviously getting stimulated every day, and that's working wonders for him.
Mark is with the Person Central Wing for the last 2 years. Mark had a bad reputation and he was supposedly very challenging. When I first met Mark, there was an instant bond, because I sat down beside this so-called dangerous person where he was residing, and I just gave him a little shoulder and I said, "Well, how are you, Mark?" And he just gave me a little wink and a shake of the head, you know, and I knew things would go well from then. In order to get more information, we decided to talk to the family. We feel family is very important, and Mary and Finola in particular gave us a totally different side to Mark. A lovable rogue who likes to have a bit of crack, likes to be the centre of attention, and he likes to do what other men do. So that gave us that was a key to us really, because to build a team around Mark, we took on a guy who was a horse riding instructor because Mark liked horses. We took on a builder. We had to go through a lot of guys to get the perfect team, but we feel now that Mark is in a good place. People have said that Mark is very challenging. We think Mark likes to be challenged, be it horse riding. He has his own motorbike. He helps all the guys out. He's his own little job. You know, Mark has surpassed everyone's expectations. The guys, Mark's team could get up to absolutely anything. They have a lot of freedom to express, I suppose, themselves. Mickey, who's a chef, he was taken on because Mark really loves his food.
Mark's routine: gets up in the morning, has his meds, has his breakfast. Then we set out on doing a few little bits around the house. Then we could go fishing some days. Myself and Mark do a lot of fishing. Chop up wood. Mark likes to hammer pallets, stuff like that. Take his, I suppose that he rids his anger when he's breaking pallets. So it's good. It's good for him.
Damien, who's a horse riding instructor, you know, he supports Mark in that role. Also, he supports Mark with kayaking. Keelan is kind of a fixer-upper, and you know, the boys build sheds and to do everything. So we're building a shed at the moment outside, and we're doing it all ourselves. And Mark loves helping out.
Mark's daily routine is he doesn't like structure, you know. So as I said, it varies quite a bit, but he gets up in the morning, he makes his own breakfast. I mean, when he started, he wasn't able to make his own breakfast. Now he'll make porridge, cornflakes, makes tea. He does all of that himself. He gets himself dressed. I mean, when he came first, he wasn't getting dressed until 3 p.m. in the day. Now he's up, dressed from 7 o'clock in the morning. He's like an alarm clock, you know. So from there, it varies. We could be making picnic benches. We could be going horse riding. Mark's doing horse riding now. We go to the local shops. You know, we can go in and collect his disability allowance. There's another shop down the road. You know, we could be even just going down looking for something that we know they don't have, just to go in and meet them and let Mark chat away to the locals and get known in his local area. He does, yeah. Going into the shops, into Micheál Carrageen's, Theresa's there behind the counter. How are you, Mark? Hello. He gets her to get the Coke from. He'll come down then with me and stand and he'll talk to Micheál. People come into the shop and how are you, Mark? You know, and he's people do. I suppose people were afraid of him at the start, but the more they get to know him, you know, appearances and sometimes he's kind of, how would you say, kind of loud and boisterous by times. But when people get used to that, it's they can just see a lovable character more so.
As I say, Mark comes in on various days now, wouldn't always be on the same day, and like the customers, I suppose initially wouldn't know him. It might have been a bit apprehensive, but as they've got to know him, as I said, there's never been any issue or any incident, you know, throughout all the time that he's been coming in here. Now, when as I said earlier on, the staff have got to know him. They know his wants and his needs, you know, and I've never in my time had any customer in either the office or the shop ever making a comment to me in a negative capacity in relation to Mark coming in here. I think it's always positive, and people think that it's fantastic that the second chance that he's got, you know, out in a community beside where his family's from, and I think people are appreciative of that.
The main thing that we've built up is trust, and I suppose Mark didn't have that. Now I can't talk about what he had previous, but he didn't seem or doesn't seem to have any trust in anybody, and now he has that trust. He sees that we trust him. He sees that before this, doors were locked to him. He sees with us that every door is open. He can come and go as he wants. He can do as he pleases, and you know, he respects that back. You know, so trust is a big thing.
It was very important for us to help Mark build good and positive relationships locally, using local shops.
Hello Mark, how are you?
Pipe.
Cigarettes, is it Mark?
Cigarettes, yeah.
Okay. What sort do you want, Mark? Is it major?
No, second. Second.
Simple, is it?
Ah.
Okay, right. Now Mark, here you go. Now, you get your change for you now, Mark. How are you today, Mark? Are you good?
Pipe.
Yes. Thanks very much, Mark.
Thank you.
Take care.
Pipe.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark. Take care.
Yes, Mark is definitely a part of the community. It's for the last 2 years we've seen a huge improvement in Mark's capabilities of dealing with general public, and people are delighted to see Mark out and about. Yeah, Mark, and they've been purchasing compost, they've been buying timber and nails and stuff, they've been making some timber products, and they've been making their fences, and they're doing their benches and their gardening stuff, and it's been huge improvement in Mark's ability, what he's been able to do for the last 2 years.
Mark hated foot and turf. He absolutely hated it. But one day, David, his other support worker, said, Mark, we're not leaving here till this van is full. And Mark said, right. And he happily filled the van because he knew he was going. So we brought that then on, and we said, well, he likes filling the van. What can we do? So we approached the local charity to see could we collect the clothes from the clothes banks, and it really has grown from there.
Mark, I'm just telling...
You drive.
I will bring you a drive, right? Can I just talk to this man for a minute, right? I'm telling him about...
150, Martin.
Did you get the Honda 50?
No, I mean 150.
Yeah, we'll have a look at the Honda 50 in a few minutes.
You give me chicken.
Anyway, Mark works for
Give me
Alan.
chicken. Give me chicken.
Um, Alan actually gave us a key to the warehouse, and... Thank you. Thank you. I'll put on the coat for in a minute.
Mark does about 10 hours a week here. He gathers clothes from the clothes bins, and they deliver them here, and they deliver furniture for Alan, and Mark gets his fuel bob every week, and he's very happy.
Well, it was, as I said, it was nervous at first that I didn't know what to make of it. Would he be able to do it, or would you have to watch him all the time? But he has improved. And every time he comes in, now he's a great welcome. He calls me Alvin. And he wants the television, and he wants to bring home these televisions and bits and bobs, which we do give him. And he pulls the bags out and pulls the bag in off the van, and it's improved unbelievable in the last year or so.
We make a point of trying to meet as many people as we can with Mark. So this clothes run, it really suits him. He likes driving, he likes filling the van, he loves meeting people. And it has just grown, and he has grown in confidence.
All in all, working with him, we try, as much as we do work with him, we try and bring in that little sense of fun, you know, that he has fun. It's important that Mark has fun in his day. So, you know, our days vary, so we do our work, but we also try and bring in that element of fun so he enjoys what he's doing.
Yeah, actually, he really enjoyed it. He took to it like a duck to water. He has horse riding in his background, and when he comes, he mentions Eddie Mack, and we get a great laugh out of him. He's wanting to be going the whole time, and he refers to all the horses as pickles. It's something in his background that he had, and it seems to be bringing him back to his youth. And he really enjoys the bit of banter and the horse riding and the independence being on the horse as well. And it seems to be great for him, and it really does. It puts a smile on his face each time he comes, you know, and it's great to see. And long may it last.
Mark has a thing about motorbikes. He has his own motorbike. Maybe in 2 or 3 years' time, Mark will be able to ride the motorbike, but it's a long-term project. But we're really confident that Mark will ride a motorbike.
I hadn't any expectations for him beyond St. Peter's while he was there, because I didn't think, I knew I wouldn't be able to have him at home because I couldn't look after him because he was so fast moving and I'm slower moving than I was. So I just couldn't. I thought, you know, he's happy there and that's great, he's been looked after. But now, seeing the change, it's just great. It's just brilliant. You know, to think that he has come so far in a short time. It's just 2 years since he moved into that house, into this care plan, we'll say. It's just 2 years now, and he has come so far in 2 years. It's fantastic.
Mark's relationship with his team is, he has his own unique way with everybody. He knows what he can get off each individual, so he's quite clever that way.
Relationship with Mark's support team is very good. They're all good fellas, and they're very interested. I mean, they all seem to be genuinely interested in his welfare, which is a big change. When in a big residential place, some people obviously were interested, but some people obviously weren't. It was just a job. At the moment, it seems like everybody is interested, which is brilliant.
It's unique in the way that everything is revolves around Mark. You know, everything is centered around him. So it's his wants and needs are met first and foremost. I mean, you go anywhere, everyone has their own different systems of work, but here our system is just purely focused on Mark. It's Mark's needs, Mark's wants. It's Mark's first.
It's all down to choice and freedom, I suppose, would be a word I'd use.
He has great freedom now. He can come and go, and it's whatever he wants to do. That's the way it is, and he's supported in that, which is great. You know, it's just it's a fantastic idea, and he's really happy.
Mark's life now is much more normal. Family life. We're getting together. Has been 2 annual barbecues now so far, and has got the whole family together, and which was a great day out. And Mark was being the best host in the world. Absolutely loved it. He was going around looking after everybody, and it's for the first time, I suppose, since Mark went into residential care that it's really the complete family together again, without the stresses that were there initially.
After my day, when I pass on, I would like him to be in this house, I hope, and have the same level of care that he has now. And that's all. He's happy, and that's all anyone could. That's all I could wish for him.
My expectations for Mark now are much higher than they were a couple of years ago. A couple of years ago, I would have thought that, you know, this is really what's going to happen in 5 years' time. You'd really be worrying. Now I see my expectations have changed so much that I would be very happy if he was able to continue on as is. He is making very good progress. So, granted, he still takes absolutely 100% full-time care, but he's a different person.
Our vision is to create a good life. It's Mark's funding, it's his team, and we plan to use his funding as best as we can to support Mark, to give him the good life.
Mark's current care plan, I suppose you call it, with Marisa, is completely different to what everything else that went before. When we were told what the idea was in the beginning, we thought to ourselves, well, this is great if it works, but Mark is going to run rings around everybody, and he'll run. But we were wrong. The whole focus seems to be on Mark. It's whatever he wants to do, it's done, and it's give him every possible stimulation, and it has just worked. It's everything else before that was all about control, and this is about freedom. And it has turned him. He is a different person.